name is Jim Worthen. I the guest host, at least that's what Mike Nicholson, the producer of Santa Barbara Forum, calls me. But given my guests tonight and some of the things he's doing, I think I should be the guest horse at Santa Barbara Forum. The guest this evening is Arthur Von Weisenberger, known to some by his doggy name Nipper. Right, Arthur?
Woof, woof. Yes, Jim. Good to see you.
So I could be your guest horse. We're going to go back over your history a little bit, even though everybody knows everything about you. You know, you've contemplated your navel or something. But you 2 years ago started a new show, and it has grown in syndication to being in several states and several. You give us an update.
Sure. You're talking about Animal Zone.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, sitting here in your Garden of Eden would be a perfect place to have some of our animals, but they would love it here. In any case, Animal Zone we started in 2018, and it was really just a local show, first airing on Cox Cable Channel 4, as well as on TVSB Channels 17 and 71. And it grew. We won a Telly Award, which was really great. That really helped us. And we expanded all the way through Southern California down to San Diego on Cox Cable. And then it started to move into other markets. And now we're in Arizona, Nevada, and Louisiana. And we're hoping for...
Why did you skip Texas?
Well, we're kind of surrounding them.
Oh,
we're going to get there eventually.
Okay.
But we're seeing that the show is expanding into other markets, and we're hoping for season 5, which begins in 2021, that we might actually go national with the show.
Great.
But, you know, we started with humble beginnings, kind of like you did here at TVSB, and look what happens.
Yeah, I'm still humble.
I don't know. They know about you all over the world.
Well, I am amazed when we first started doing shows back on Channel 17. You'd run into people that you knew, or even a stranger, and say, "Oh, I love your show. I saw you on TV." And say, "Well, which show was it?" "Oh, I don't know. I was skipping through the channels and I saw you for 2 minutes." And now people actually can tell you the middle and end of the show. They actually watch our shows. I know you have a guy that watches Animal Zone every Saturday at 5 o'clock or 5:30 and on Channel 4, and then critiques it to you.
Yeah, actually he does. But you know what I've learned is that he actually, when the show is on, he fast forwards through my stuff and goes straight to the animals. So, you know, I've never performed with animals or children. You know what they say.
That's right. Who said that? W.C. Fields. Yeah. He also had W.C. Fields, of course, you know, had a local base.
Here in Santa Barbara?
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Lompoc, California, the greatest little city in the world. That's where the Bank Dick was shot.
Of course, that's right. Yes.
Yeah. Another great Bank Dick story is a guy actually about 6 years ago got let out of Lompoc prison. And within a half an hour, he had taken a taxi and was sticking up Bank of America in Lompoc. And after he got done, he went and sat down. It's all he wanted was to go back to prison. Seriously, really? That was his motive. He wanted to be back in prison, so he went and stuck up a bank and waited to get arrested within an hour. So W.C. Fields would have loved that.
Yeah, he sure would. That's funny.
A man that hates dogs and children can't be all bad. Isn't that what he said? Cats.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe.
Animals and children.
See, I'm the opposite. I love animals and children.
I also notice that you have no ugly women on your show.
No.
They range on a scale of 1 to 10, from a 7 to a 10 or 11.
We're very blessed to have some of the most beautiful people on TV. I mean, you have to. When you got these beautiful animals, you got to have beautiful people. I'm the one who's kind of looking kind of doggy, so to speak.
Well,
But the girls are great. I mean, we have Laura Stinchfield, who is the pet psychic, and she's absolutely remarkable. Her
I
ability.
still am a doubter.
You just got to watch her in action because it's so natural. No, but in person when you see her, it's just she'll just sit there and it'd be just like talking with you. I mean, she really does. And by the way, her brother is Grant Stinchfield, who, if you watch Newsmax, Channel 82 in Santa Barbara, he hosts this Stinchfield show, which is on, usually I think in the 7 or 8 o'clock at night on Newsmax.
Political commentary?
Yeah, he's a political guy. He's great. Then we also have Andrea Kuch. I don't know if you saw her recently. She's the one who knows everything about horses. We call her Das Horseprofessor because she's from Germany. She's a big star in Germany.
I thought she was going to be on the next season.
She started this season.
Okay.
We ended the last 2 episodes with her. And she is totally different. She approaches...
Oh, she was the blonde that couldn't speak clear English.
I think they all speak beautiful English. Anyway, the horses certainly like her. Yeah. She studied with Monty Roberts up in San Ynez and watched his kind of like the horse whisperer approach to horses. But she also studied science, and she's written scientific studies about horses and books on horses, and does this very popular German show about horses. And she really combines the combination of the horse whisperer mentality with a scientific understanding of how a horse thinks, behaves, reacts, and so forth. She's really good.
I know you reject my animal history, because I eat meat, because I killed my own chickens and rabbits and goats and ate them. You reject that I have a love for animals. And
you love how they taste. I know, I understand.
Well, speaking of the horse whisperer, before the horse whisperer, we had some horses, my wife and I. I think that may be why we had our divorce when we got up to 17 Arab horses and my quarter horse. And we had occasion to bring a foal up to being a yearling and needing to be broken, and we hired somebody who was recommended, and I noticed everything except real spurs and just a heavy hand kicking and hitting the horse when it was wrong by this young woman who was. So I fired her and got somebody who did it the way I'd like to. Rub them, talk to them, get them. What Monty brought to being the horse whisperer, but I found that was. I could handle both my dogs and my horses by, treating them with respect and with touching and handling. Say, but you don't let me be good.
You're so good at this. I mean, and I don't think we can afford you. You know, but
no, I mean in our personal life, you seem to look down on me because I wrung a chicken's neck and.
No. And actually, you know what? Honestly, I'll tell you that. And I'm not a vegetarian, by the way.
Oh.
I live with a vegetarian, and I respect vegetarians. I'm not, because I occasionally just have this urge for meat. I think it's a male thing. I mean, I need it. Even just talking about it right now, I need a drink of water, nice brisket of beef. But I respect my vegetarian other half because since she doesn't want meat, I don't eat meat in home.
Right.
I did when we had a dog. I used to bring back some beef jerky, which allegedly was for the dog.
I thought you were going to talk about being in the Orient when we had a dog.
I would bring Mikey, my dog. I miss Mikey. I'd bring him back beef jerky, and ostensibly it was for him. And every once in a while when no one was around and I was nibbling a little bit, the only person who knew was Mikey, and he'd look at me with a look on his face going, I'm going to tell. No, but in any case. But what I was going to say was the fact that you, I hate to say this, butcher your own animals before you eat them, that's probably a really good thing in a way, because you're taking responsibility for that animal's death. And hopefully you're honoring the animal, that you've killed. Well, I knew a chef who used to require that for anybody that was going to eat his meat meals. They would actually butcher the animal with him so that they understood what they were doing.
I haven't done that.
It'll drive you to vegetarianism, I'm sure.
I haven't done that in over 50 years, but it you know, I was raised
on a farm, right?
Yeah, a little, believe it or not, an acreage, but chickens and goats and rabbits, and I love to tell young people the story of you hold them up by the ears. That's for the rabbits.
You don't want to do this. Anyway, but yes,
as you say,
back to Animal Zone.
Yes.
It's going great. We love animals. It's only a positive show about animals and respecting animals and enjoying them and looking after them. And people who are experts in animal welfare are featured on the show. And we really have we have Larissa Wall on the show on a regular basis. Larissa is on Hallmark Channel's Home and Family. Yeah. And she's the pet rescue expert, and she's wonderful. She knows
down
so
in
much
Santa
about
Monica, or
she's based in she lives in Calabasas, but the show is out of Universal Studios.
Yeah, it's and you have another frequent guest is Clint Eastwood's.
Dina Eastwood is wonderful. She lives up in Pebble Beach with her husband Scott Fisher. Yeah. And they have a whole family of pugs. She's a pug dog rescuer. And she loves pugs. She says pugs are not like any other dog on the planet. They're their own species. Well,
if I see a similarity, if you get a good look at Clint Eastwood and a pug, you know, ugly beauty.
Okay. No comment.
You know the story of, no, I won't go into Johnny Carson's stories, but yeah, no, I enjoy Animal Zone, and I love to.
Prevagen. Prevagen's been a really good product for people who might have a little trouble with their memory. Sorry.
No.
We're not allowed to advertise on TVSB. I know. Yes.
Are you insulting me?
No, I'm just throwing a little humor in your direction. You know, isn't this a comedy show? No. Okay.
I am a joke. Proud of it. Hard to keep track. So you do have sponsors, and some of them
we have underwriters, yeah.
Oh,
including Santa Barbara Humane Society, a wonderful organization. Yeah. Wendy P. McCaw Foundation, wonderful organization.
Wendy what?
P. McCaw Foundation.
McCaw.
We also have the Schulte Family Foundation, who has been helping us.
And Great Bakery.
And then, of course, we have wonderful advertisers that are, you know, they basically just like to be there. But we have this wonderful organization. I don't know if you've heard of them. They do all these wonderful spots about encouragement, you know, love, pass it on. They're out of Denver, and they are just a nonprofit trying to pass on good, heartfelt words that hopefully you use in life. You know, gratitude, love. I mean, it's great. Well, and so we're really proud to have those in the show.
I tell, and I've never been accused of not being a
Prevagen taker. You haven't been accused of
that. No, unlike my show, I have to really choose my words.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And
we just wing it on our show.
Yeah.
Gets me in a lot of trouble.
But anyway. So you were doing two other shows for years.
Yes.
One was a food show and one was a travel show. Are they gone?
Nothing's ever gone.
No.
Especially because they're all on the internet, so you can see them forever.
Yeah. That's what
one was called Nipper's Table Talk, and that was the show we were doing with Ron Herron, you know, from AM 1290. And
the Baron.
It was a lot of fun doing that show. That's been put on hiatus for the time being, although we're still, you know, running the website nippers.com, and people are still reading about restaurants that they can go to that are either open or that might be open or that have partially open, whatever. And then also we do another show, which is called Around the World, the travel show, which we record at TVSB Studios. And we've been waiting for TVSB Studios to reopen because our goal is to bring it back. It's a travel show, so The good news is most of our correspondents haven't been traveling,
Right.
so there isn't much of a show we could do anyway. But once, didn't COVID get cured as of November 5th?
I think so.
4th or 5th, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, once
But
people are back on the road.
But in their criminal justice and fairness doctrine of the Biden administration, they want everybody to wear a mask so bandits don't feel out of place.
Well, anyway, people are going to start traveling again. I actually talked to somebody who just got back from Mexico, and they said that LAX was packed, which I was surprised to hear. And they said the airplane, they were of course on Aero Mexico, one of those airplanes going down to Mexico City. They said it was packed. They didn't have any spaces between the passengers. Most people were wearing masks on board, but it was not like what we're thinking. And then when they got to Mexico City's airport was complete packed as well.
Oh, yeah.
So either people have been storing up their desire to travel and now they're doing it, or they may have been traveling, we never knew about it.
Yeah, the pandemic is so really minor in the scope of death and illness in society.
Mm-hmm.
When you have during the same time, suicide and drug overdose has killed more people.
Right.
And just the flu has killed more people in every year, not than this time in the pandemic, not the 200,000, but every year 50 to 200,000
Right.
since 1918. So we didn't stop the world.
No.
We didn't even stop war.
Right. And we didn't have politicians like we do, especially here in California, who say no Thanksgiving, no Christmas, no family gatherings. We can't do anything until at least we have 2 weeks of no illnesses or deaths and all that. And I maybe think maybe what we should say is that people can't drive cars until we have 2 weeks of no illnesses or deaths or crashes.
Yeah.
Because it's about the same rationale.
Well, and the medical damage done by the shutdowns is yet to be seen. How many people
suicides and depressions and
undiagnosed cancer, undiagnosed treated heart attack and stroke that could have in normal times
be dealt with, and those kind of things you want to catch early on.
Yeah,
anyway.
And people are personally, I don't like going to this time of year, the flu season. I don't like going to a doctor, or I'm very careful at going if I have to an emergency room. It's there's sick people there, so I don't want to go in and say, take care of my boo-boo. It's bleeding, but I'll do something with it, but not. And it's the whole health mood in our society toward holistic, natural health treatment may have been enhanced by some of this, but as far as fatal diseases, serious diseases, I've talked to doctors just in line at Vaughn's that it's been a very tragic circumstance for health care, and that also that the people running it, our health directors aren't doctors. They're people who came up through health administration and health government positions. They got their master's and doctorate at not in an operating room, and yet they're the ones telling us how many feet apart we should be. And with that, all this is going to cause me to be struck by lightning, not by pandemic. So the video, you were also in your earlier seasons, you were traveling a lot more. Are you back in season 5 traveling, going?
Even in season 4, we traveled. We went down to LA a lot, and Camarillo, and went to places like Paul Works and Best Friends in Mission Hills. Yeah, we've been on the road. Not maybe as much outside of the Southern California area, but our goal is to get it back out there because we have some events we want to cover in Las Vegas. They have an adoption dog show that goes on there, and we want to be there for that. But a lot of these events have been canceled, as you know, so we're kind of waiting for those things to restart.
Well, the whole fostering and finding a home for pets has changed so much just in the last 10 years.
Yeah, it's become very popular.
Yeah.
Do you know the shelters, when we were filming recently at the Santa Barbara Humane Society, their shelter is almost out of animals. They have to go and find animals and pull animals from faraway places, LA, Bakersfield. I mean, really, they're bringing in animals that normally wouldn't come in here because we usually have a lot of animals. And they found that all their even long-term residents, people that kind of would pass on them because they were either too old or had health issues or whatever, all those have gotten adopted. I mean, there's been if you can imagine, a shortage on adoptable animals during this.
One of the things I've noted on Animal Zone is that during the pandemic particularly, they more and more fostering, it's a volunteer or a staffer taking a dog or cat and fostering them. Or will you take care of them till we get through this? Right. And that I think of one show they said 40% of the foster pets, that's their permanent home.
They call them foster failures.
Yeah.
Which actually I think are foster successes because
absolutely.
When they end up finding a home, that's the goal. And by the way, you can always on every show what we include are adoptable animals at the different shelters, both Santa Barbara Humane Society as well as up in Santa Maria and sometimes ASAP. And we call that our adoption corner. So if you are looking for animals, if you watch the show on either TVSB, and on TVSB we're on Sundays at 7:30 on Channel 17 and 9:30 p.m. On Channel 71. But they're always available on animalzone.org.
Yeah, well...
and that's my commercial. Thank you.
Well, in either season, it may have been season 1, your commercial vehicle was Channel 4, Cox Cable.
Yep.
And a retired reporter friend of yours, Jimmy Olsen, would call up and say, it's not on, even though it says it's supposed to be on, and you had to straighten. It took you I think a month or two to straighten out Cox Cable to have it running when it was saying it was going to run.
All right, I don't want to really get down on Cox Cable, but I will. No, because Cox Cable, let's face it, here in Santa Barbara, our Cox has been out so often that we don't have any. I mean, it's more often not working than working. It's so frustrating. I mean, either, I turn it on and I'm seeing that little blue panel saying, call this number and give them this code. And I do. And I go, I'm not being able to see anything. So I don't know what's going on in this market. I don't know if that's the same situation in other markets, but I think Santa Barbara has got some serious problems. And I hope they get it straightened out because we're happy with our coverage outside of Santa Barbara, but we're a little frustrated with what's happening locally.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's the boxes too. Like you probably have one of those fancy boxes that get all the stations, right? And then for those of us who are a little more humble, we have the little tiny box, the micro box, the one that that doesn't get anything much, but it does get animals.
You can't record 1,000 shows then?
No, I have nothing like that, and I can't get to the 1,000 channels. I get down to the channel 4, but I know you got 1,004, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't have that. He's so rich,
It just came with it.
Yeah, well, it didn't come with mine. But also what I've heard is that sometimes you'll get it on your bigger, more impressive box, and my little tiny box doesn't get it at all. So there's a problem with the boxes as well.
Yeah, an old friend, Tony Romasano, who passed away several years ago, stopped me in the post office. He says, I can't see your show on my TV. I used to be able to, but I can't. and we determined that he had one kind of box in the living room, but he was trying to watch my show in his bedroom at night, and he had that other kind of box, and it doesn't give Channel 17.
Wow.
But
I'd always have the best box in my bedroom if it were me.
Cut.
What are you talking about?
Oh, it's like the old Rorschach test. I have a dirty mind.
Oh, I see.
Okay. Let's talk about the local media.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed in KEYTV's their news. They don't seem to be as even-handed in their coverage.
Mm-hmm.
The news press, I complain frequently that here's a very conservative instance, a conservative message, and all of a sudden they're getting Planned Parenthood to comment on it, or
but that's the difference between us and maybe some of the other media, because we are trying to give out both sides. We're not really taking sides in the news. We got to give the conservative side, and we give the liberal side, because that's, I think, what a newspaper should do. Now, in our opinion section, which is totally different from the news, our opinion section is completely different. And in the opinions, we're going to probably reflect a little bit more of the ownership's conservative values. But we also welcome and we get letters from our liberal readers and subscribers who take an opposite position. And we like to let that be aired, because the only way this country is ever going to get itself back together, if it's going to get itself back together, is if both sides listen to each other. You don't have to necessarily agree, but you got to at least listen. And that hasn't been going on for many years. I think, for the last, especially during previous administrations, there's been very little, it's been all one-sided. And I think that generally, my opinion is that conservatives tend to be pretty quiet and rather restrained about their opinions, whereas liberals might be a little more vocal about their opinions. And both are good ways to approach. It's just a different mentality. But I've noticed that during this last election period, I'd see lots of well, not very many actually, a few Biden-Harris lawn signs out and about. Very few Trump signs. And I talked to a couple of people who were Trump supporters. I said, why aren't you putting out Trump signs? He says, we don't want our house to be targeted. So I think there's a fear factor that comes out, which is unfortunate. Now, I don't know. I was getting a little confused by all the lawn signs I saw around. In fact, I almost voted for a for a real estate agent instead of a politician. You just see all these lawn signs. But anyway.
Well, in the Vaughn's parking lot on Turnpike, some merchants, I think one is a gardener, and he has kind of matched what would be a campaign sign.
Yeah. And you had an interesting incident where you were finding that lawn signs were being taken.
Oh, I had. You had to pay for Trump signs. Mm-hmm. California was not a place they were going to send in thousands of signs.
Right.
So it was a $10 contribution, and I put up 4.
Wow. A $40 contribution. Good for you.
Yeah, and 2 were on Hollister, and 2 were on a beautiful area in the North Patterson area. And both of them, the signs were stolen.
Wow.
The Trump signs were gone. Interestingly, there was an Andy Caldwell sign up at the same location, a water board candidate sign, and a Goleta School District candidate sign, and those weren't touched. Only the Trump signs were taken.
Do you think the person who took those signs was too cheap to pay the $10 and they just wanted one?
No, it could have been, but they left the stakes.
Oh,
the
so
metal stakes.
They weren't going to put him.
There's been a dispute between myself and others that they say, "Oh, they're vandals," and I said, "No, I kind of think they were young people up through their 30s, but particularly, 12, 14, 15-year-olds who wanted one for their bedroom, a permanent souvenir. Oh. Because they weren't torn up and left there like I used to do. I mean, in campaigns back in the 70s, it was a practice to tear down the other guy's sign, particularly if you could establish that it wasn't on private property, like the signs you see along the right-of-way.
Right.
Right, it's a custom. It would be a community service to go out and take all those down because it's illegal. One night, 4 of us took down 900 signs that had been put on utility poles. Can you imagine how bad that campaign was to spend that kind of money and have 4 young Republicans wipe it out in one night? Well, you can't do that anymore. You should be able to because they're not legal. And what happens is they go up by one party or the other, and then the other side has to put them up, and all of a sudden you have this horrendous number of signs. Now, government would say that's against the law, but the Constitution says they have a right to do that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and in fact, I object to the law that says that you can only put up a campaign sign in Santa Barbara County 90 days before the election. Mm-hmm. Well, I've got in case it goes the wrong way, I got my Trump in 2024 sign ready to go up for the next 4 years, and I'll replace it every time and stay.
The years ago, when Montecito was trying to incorporate back in the early 90s,
you were a candidate.
I was running for office. I was actually running not only just for office, but also for the whole incorporation effort, because we set up LAFCO that we were trying to have money that we could help open, help Montecito actually get funded properly. And any case, it was a very interesting race, and there were a lot of candidates. There were like 19 of us that were running for office. And so, as you know, with any kind of political campaign, what drives it is primarily money. And so I reached out to all the people I knew that might be helpful in that area and raised a good amount of money for a city that didn't even have a city council yet, but which we were hoping it would. And so what you have to do is once you start getting the money and you start deciding where you're going to spend it, you're going to place ads in the Santa Barbara NewsPress, number one, but you're also going to probably order some lawn signs, maybe some bumper stickers, so other things like that. So we decided we're going to order lawn signs, and the other candidates who were not very good at raising money started passing a petition around saying that they were not going to put out lawn signs to keep the beauty of Montecito. And they came to me and I said, well, now I want you to sign this. I go, no, I can't sign it because I've already ordered my lawn signs. Why would I sign it? Oh, you're a bad guy. And then, this is before I was at Santa Barbara NewsPress, one of the editorial editors wrote a scathing story about me going against the grid as far as not agreeing to this lawn sign business. Well, then that spurred on more press and publicity, or negative publicity, but the one that really killed me was Alex Velto. Remember Alex Velto?
Oh, yeah.
Realtor? So Alex wrote this letter. He was a friend of mine. He wrote this letter supporting the team that's not going to put up lawn signs, because he says, we can't have our beautiful town of Montecito littered with lawn signs. And I thought to myself, wait, every Sunday you're out there littering the lawns with your lawn signs for real estate. How can you be so anyway, that was the beauty of politics, as they say, it makes strange bedfellows. You find people that you thought were on your side that aren't, and you find people that you didn't know who are.
Politics was a lot more fun years ago. I tell the stories of Roger Stone and Paul Manafort and going out and tearing down signs, and it's great fun. Great fun. A guy named John Schaff was running for city council, and I was running Bill Sayers' campaign for city council. And we would tear down each other's signs. I was better at it. And one day, at a city council meeting, Schaff was standing in the back, and I came over, how's it going, John? And he says, would you please you know, when you come out of downtown and start up onto the mesa, straight ahead of you is a construction site. It's apartments now. And he said, I had a big sign up there, and you guys have torn it down and then put your own signs over it. And he says, could you not do that? I said, well, John, you know, it's part of the game. And he says, but I own the property. It's my property and you're tearing down. I said, we won't do it anymore. So but those were fun times.
Yes, they were. They were great times.
NewsPress.
Yes, sir.
Smaller.
It's still what they call a broadsheet.
Yeah.
This is a lot bigger than most newspapers, which are this size.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
So smaller, you're talking not as many pages.
Yes.
But size-wise, bigger as always.
I was kind of comparing it to pre-pandemic, whatever they call this.
Right.
Pandemic. An earlier guest that I was working with called it phonemic, you know, phonemic or something. So I'm having trouble. So instead of 4 sections, now 2. A lot less sports, but there wasn't.
Who's playing sports?
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah.
The main thing is our paper is directly related to the success of Santa Barbara. And during the pandemic, as you know, so many businesses suffered. Unfortunately, we lost quite a few. So what happens when people aren't going out spending money? No one wants to advertise. So you have advertising drop. So as a result, we had to pull in our belt a bit. And it'll come back. You know, we're seeing already things are starting to warm up. We're certainly getting into the more the joyous season of advertising and shopping and all the rest. So we'll hopefully see an uptick in ads, and as a result of that, then you'll see more pages.
Well, and you had more political ads than normal.
This year was great. Yeah, we had some wonderful ads from some great candidates. And
not like years ago when there'd be a full page. We're talking 10 years ago of endorsements. So everybody had to look for their name because they'd get cards and put 500 names in their ad. But more really ads selling an idea or supporting a candidate in a more professional way.
Yeah.
You also, going back to 4 years ago, you were the first paper to endorse Donald J. Trump for president, and you were one of 4, when we say papers, we're talking about dailies.
Yeah.
To stay with him.
Yes. Yeah.
This year, I don't know haven't heard how it went around the country.
You know, I think there were several more. I mean, in 2016, we were the first paper, and for a while the only paper that endorsed Donald Trump for president. And we had great times when Rachel Maddow went out and tried to make fun of us because we got to watch her the night of the election crying.
Yeah.
But hi, Rachel. Anyway, in 2020, we were one of the first papers again to endorse President Trump for re-election, and I think Wendy wrote a very wonderful support and explanation of why, because it was basically, you know, promises made, promises kept, and she went through all the number of things he's achieved in his 4 years.
Her New Year's editorials, that editorial, you should hire this gal to be a weekly editorial writer.
I couldn't afford her. But, yeah, I agree. But then, you know, there were a few more newspapers that also endorsed President Trump as we came up to the election. I wish they'd done it earlier, because I think if you're going to do endorsements, you should get them out, especially with all the mail-in ballots and everything going on, much earlier than normal. We try to get it out very early.
And unlike even you recently, you took a stand for endorsing down ballot. It's a professional term. Down ballot candidates.
Some of the other smaller races and,
Yeah.
and water boards and
Yeah.
school boards and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, I think it's important.
Yeah, and
Especially this year it was very
you had a
important.
pretty good record. It's considered incumbency, and the political organizations that have put some of these people in office, by my recollection, you won a majority of the races, the candidates you supported.
Well, we were really excited that, you know, this year we had a lot of very positive feedback from our readership, which, you know, generally is about, especially on Sunday, we're probably looking at 30,000 plus readers. So a lot of the voting community is reading the paper. Not all of them agree with us.
Yeah.
But at least they're reading it and they're understanding maybe some of the stuff they won't get from mainstream media, because as you know, most of the mainstream media has not been reporting balanced news. And we're trying to really report balanced news, and then we'll give our opinion based on this balance of news, which way voters may want to consider voting.
Well, it's an old political saw, you know, you're running for office, how can I help you? Should I endorse the other guy? Well, I think particularly in the nonpartisan offices, the ones that don't have a D or an R after them, which are the vast majority of elected offices in our country and in our area, the ability to have a list that tells you something, an endorsement list that tells you something about that name.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure you have a large readership that looked at that for making their decision, and I'm sure there were some people on the ultra-liberal bend who cut it out and took it to the polls to vote the opposite.
Well, we're just glad to get the word out, you know, and listen, there's so much stuff that you can't believe. I mean, you can't believe the polls, you can't believe the media. I mean, it's kind of like the story about the advisor who went to President Putin, and he goes, President Putin, I got some good news and some bad news for you. And he says, what do you want at first? And well, Putin says, give me the good news. He says, well, the good news is you won the election. Oh, yeah, that is good news. How could there be any bad news? Well, he said, the bad news is nobody voted for you.
Well, it's I feel for the candidates who put out so much and lose. And in our system, where there's reapportionment and gerrymandering, we are in an area where only one side can win most of the medium downside, you know, where they're Democrat and Republican. Only the Democrat can win. Mm-hmm. And yet every time a Republican steps up and takes it on and people put their heart and soul into it, two I think of particularly, not to exclude other people, but Andy Caldwell, he, worked so hard and yet came up very short because of the nature of the district. Mm-hmm. And young Charlie Cole, who, he had a story, he had a bright new philosophy that was still conservative but very innovative, and got beat by an old political, guy who had been there for years, but he had a D after his name and won overwhelmingly. So that's the system, and seldom can you beat it.
It is, and as long as it's an honest system, as we've been seeing with all the potential voter fraud that's going on, one doesn't know how much of our system has been affected by that. But I think one of the lessons, as we found out when we tried to incorporate Montecito, we lost by 81 votes in Montecito. I mean, you realize how narrow these things can go. But I think what hopefully happens is you get engaged in the whole civics world and political world, and maybe people like Charlie, Andy, they'll they've learned a lot through this process, and maybe I would see them going on to doing other things that will be great for our community.
When we talk about fraud, everyone right now is focusing on the big picture, the presidency. In some areas, U.S. Senate races. Seldom does the fraud allegations and fraud happening even is at lower offices. I mean, not consider that they're doing it to win the East Goleta sanitation district, you know, and yet that's where the impact is. Mm-hmm. If you steal 2% of the vote for U.S. Senate, you know, that's in most areas 200,000 to 1 million votes. But where it really impacts is it's when that trickles down to a 500 people voting on some local school board, and that 2% is 10 votes. Mm-hmm. And so as Brian Campbell said to me when he and I were discussing this, he was a candidate who had run for city council, lost. Now he ran for school board, lost. He's against the machine. And as he said, but you know, that trickle down, there's so many of our races that end up in, as you pointed out, 81 votes. Mm-hmm. And so this misappropriation of the right to vote, and I use that term because we have so many people now getting mail ballots that don't exist.
Yeah,
they're not registered voters there. They maybe were in Isla Vista and are gone. They may have lived and died 2 or 3 years ago, because our voter rolls in many cases are off by 4 to 10 years of residency.
I think our elections voting system right now is really for the birds, and what really needs to be done is to simplify it. Just go back to the good old days where you go in with your ID, you show who you are, you sign, and you do your ballot. You know, and that worked really well. I think I would pull out all the computers because there's too much chance for manipulation. Who knows what software has been installed, and you know, good old paper ballots were a great way to go.
Yeah, and by some way we usually could get a result in 24 hours, even in a close race, a few days.
And I think, you know what, I was thinking about this earlier, because as you know, we made a point in the paper on November 9th that the election remains undecided, and we weren't going to be referring to former Vice President Joseph Biden as President-elect, because he isn't.
No.
And we refused to go along with the mainstream media, with Associated Press, with Reuters, and all the various news organizations that jumped the gun, I think, as far as trying to preempt what the results would be. And I think, you know, what we've really come to terms with is that the media has no business calling the election.
Right.
Now, there was a time, and you probably remember back in the good old days of just 3 channels, CBS, NBC, and ABC, you'd watch Walter Cronkite, and they'd be looking at the results coming up on the screen, and they could pretty safely predict who the winner was going to be. And they did it with some sort of responsibility and not necessarily agenda-driven. That's not the case of what we saw happen on this election. We saw the media just dive in to try and quash the other side from their narrative.
And still are.
Yeah. So we definitely wanted it to be separate from that, and you know, I think it's the right thing to do. You know, for us in this newspaper business, words are really important. We have taken exception to a lot of style sheets that AP sends out because we disagree with the wording. We don't think it's correct, and we want to give our readers accuracy.
Well, and it's part of a travesty of our education system that continues in the media, because right now there are people, 50 million probably, who really believe that Joe Biden's been elected president, that it's over. Mm-hmm. They don't understand the system. He may be, but we're a republic, there is a system, and that won't be over till, as I once said, till the 13th of December, mm-hmm. after the Electoral College is certified. They vote on the 12th, or later.
Right.
We've had 2 presidents who were elected just before inaugural, because they were elected by the Congress of the United States. Mm-hmm. And when I kid about Donald Trump losing and running again in 4 years and getting elected, Grover Cleveland did that. You have to learn from history and the way the system works.
Right.
Let's talk again about, because due to my friend Jimmy Olsen, I really have learned more and more to respect what Wendy has done, and you, of course, and so I look at it and see a different market than the one I thought the news press addressed 10 years ago. Much more local.
Right.
You talked about business support, human interest. I noticed a guy named Benvenidos, I think is his name, was in the paper for the 4th time today, because he first was nominated for the Caregiver of the Year, and you did a story. Then he won the Caregiver of the Year for the state, and then big story. Then he won the Caregiver of the Year for the nation, and great story in how he is the human whisperer, the mm-hmm. way he treats people who need caregivers compared to the people who use the whip and club. That's very interesting. I like that. He does treat them in a more human fashion, just like Monty treats horses in a more kind fashion. Well, today I think the company, and I've forgotten the company name, is a caregiver group that won an award. And in the article, I do read the paper. Here's mm-hmm. this Beneditos for the 4th time in 3 weeks.
Don't you think that kindness should be something to be applauded on a large scale? I mean, wouldn't it be great if the mainstream media was acknowledging people who did good things and were encouraging that? I mean, that's what we try and do, because it's so important to get across what's the values that we all hold dear. I mean, you have some very strong, high values, and I think that most of our readers do as well. And I applaud that. And we want to cater to those people, that they know the good things that are going on in our community.
You do a lot of stories about businesses who are in need, are providing a need in this time. Nonprofits. Mm-hmm. You do a lot of work with expanded stories about nonprofits, and these are things that we can all learn from. Right. I learned from reading a lot of the stories, and then of course the hard news, and I like the crime blotter that you've brought back.
I know that. Remember that from the old days.
Yeah.
We're so glad that Dave Mason, who's our managing editor, brought that in, and it really is something I turn to usually first thing, because I want to see if anyone I know is in there. I keep looking for your name, but I don't see it. No, it's really
Worthen must still be alive. I had a friend that read the obituaries every time to make sure he wasn't in it. And again, I think what's happened in sports is characterized by the mess that sports is in. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like the baseball team at UCSB has a set schedule or travel. You don't know what's going on because the governing bodies keep changing it.
Right.
And
we're lucky. We still have two of the top sports people in the country. In my opinion, at the paper, one of them being Mark Patton, who's been there for years, and of course Jerry Fall, who Jerry has also transitioned into writing other articles, if you've noticed. And Jerry is
he was
a
the
great
crime
writer.
bladder today.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. And by the way, speaking of wonderful people, I don't know if you've ever met Yolanda Apodaca. She's our operations manager.
Oh yeah.
She's such a gem, and she really keeps everybody on the moving forward successfully and keeping the paper going well. And of course, we've got wonderful production team. Sharon Moore puts the paper together. We produce the paper. We print it every day out on Kellogg Avenue. Yeah. We also print a lot of other newspapers as well. But we have a very busy printing operation as well.
The thing that I would like the Santa Barbara Forum audience to realize is that they need to support the news press, and they can do it in two ways. If they have a business, I'll tell you, it works. Queen of Clean. I saw that, and I was trying to figure out who should clean a property where the tenants had brought in dogs without permission, and so I knew there were fleas and hair, and so O'Connor Pest Control and Queen of Clean I saw in your paper and used them. Then I had a house that sold Queen of Clean.
Good.
So
it works.
So yeah, supporting them and their advertising in the news press, but as a business person, you're doing two things. You're getting business, and you're supporting the news press.
Right.
And I think that's something that we have to sell more and more.
Thank you.
And
we love the businesses that support the paper because that's our bread and butter, keeps the doors open. And of course, we love our subscribers because our subscribers, by committing to a subscription, and you can get it delivered to your home, which is still the most wonderful way. Most people love just being able to have the tactile experience.
I stagger out at between 6 and 7 every morning and pick it up.
But if you're somebody that maybe is from the generation that doesn't like to read papers, maybe like to read it on the internet or on their iPhone or whatever, then they can go to newspress.com and they can sign up for the digital version of the paper.
But you don't do a free version of the paper digitally.
No, we found out that giving away the news really is kind of like giving away the store, because how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay for your staff and for all the things that go into making a newspaper? You can't. So we've had to stick with a paywall, and we, of course, are very proud of the paper that you can actually buy it at newsstands if you want to.
Arthur, we don't have enough time.
It goes by too fast with you, Jim. That's what all the girls said.
Yeah.
Sorry, my last joke of the night. Sorry.
And your second dirty one. And that one you could understand. The other one was kind of, no one figured it out. Like most of your discussion and humor, nobody. Anyway, thank you, Arthur.
Thank you, Jim.
Our best to Wendy, and we love the news press, as I'm sure you love Santa Barbara Forum.
We do. Thank you.